This Beetle was built in 1966 and has driven over 350,000 miles on American roads. Its owner had the car for more than 50 years and named it Annie. Right now, you're watching workers from the special restoration team move this Beetle's body. In 2016, Volkswagen of America fully restored Annie. The restoration took 11 months and was done in Puebla, Mexico, where Beetles were still being built until 2003. Annie's restoration used over 40% original parts and included modern upgrades like disc brakes, a new transmission, and fresh paint, all while keeping her vintage soul. Annie's story became a symbol of loyalty, nostalgia, and human connection with cars, highlighting how classic Beetles hold special places in their owners' hearts. The Beetle reached the height of its popularity in America in the late 1960s when it came to symbolize simplicity, freedom, and individuality. The team took Annie apart completely, removing every nut, bolt, and screw. They cleaned, repaired, or refinished any parts that could be reused. Parts that were too rusted or damaged were either rebuilt from scratch or replaced with original VW parts. The interior was restored to look like it did in 1967, using materials that matched the original. The dashboard, steering wheel, and seats were repaired or rebuilt. Small details like the chrome trim, knobs, and logos were cleaned and polished to keep them authentic. New carpeting and sound insulation were added for comfort and quiet. The team put Annie back together by hand, one piece at a time. Chrome bumpers, lights, and badges were carefully installed. The original license plates were put back on, keeping a sense of continuity. Some modern updates, like a smoother paint finish and minor safety improvements, were added, but the car still looks true to its 1967 style. This is what the owner's farewell to her Beetle looked like before the restoration began. But now, let's take a look at the restoration of the BMW 507 that once belonged to Elvis Presley.
The closeness of an audience.
Formerly owned by Elvis Presley himself.
haben, sieht man auch wieder die Karosserienummer mit 178. Das zeigt, dass das sehen wir die Karosserienummer, die Nummer 178, das heißt, die Fahrgestelle raus.
gleich hoch war, verrostet ist jetzt. Das war sehen. Ja, bleib so von der Hand. Nummer rein und deine Nummer. So ist die Position.
Schön langsam machen das. Schön langsam machen das. Dass man es genau sieht. Schnell zufrieden, sehr gut. Guck mal. Guck mal.
Formerly owned by Elvis Presley himself. Look at this.
The current process you are viewing is the disassembly of the Honda V10 engine that helped McLaren win the 1990 Formula One World Championship. The engineers working on this engine are the same ones who hand-assembled it over 40 years ago. This engine is famous for striking a perfect balance V8 engines, which are lightweight and compact, and V12 engines, which offer smooth operation and high power. Its sound is legendary among Formula One fans, sharp, high-pitched, and resonant. Many consider it one of the greatest sounds ever produced by a combustion engine. The disassembly of this engine took about 15 hours. These senior engineers have decades of experience with Honda, and their annual salary is around $100,000. The work takes place at Honda's Research and Development Hub in the Sakura factory in Japan. This facility is one of Honda's most important centers, where top engineers and scientists develop future technology. Formula One power units for Red Bull and other teams are also manufactured here. Right now, you are watching the disassembly of the engine head. This engine is the V805 from the Honda RA 100E V10, the very last Honda V10 ever raced by the legendary Ayrton Senna. These engines were lightweight, powerful, and exceptionally reliable, fully competitive with Ferrari and Renault engines of that era. Senna and his teammate, Gerhard Berger, used Honda power to win races and championships. From 1988 to 1991, McLaren Honda dominated Formula One with multiple constructors and drivers' championships. This particular engine was the last Honda V10, raced by Senna in 1992, and is remembered as a legendary piece of engineering. The engines could rev to around 13,000 RPM, which was extremely high at the time, delivering smooth power that made the car more controllable at the limit. Unlike many engines of the era, Honda's V10s were famous for finishing full race distances, a crucial factor in winning championships.
後ろで。
The V805 engine powered Senna during the warm-up, at the 1990 Japanese Grand Prix and in the Australian Grand Prix, the final race of the season. In Formula One at the time, engines were usually sent back to Japan for analysis and then scrapped. However, since Honda was already developing a V12 for 1991, V805 was preserved intact, making its survival extremely rare.
によってこの色が違うんで、燃え方が。
Honda Racing Global technicians carefully disassembled the engine at the Sakura facility. Every component, from camshafts to pistons, rods, and cam covers, has been preserved and placed in a custom display case with the certificate of authenticity. Beyond its technical significance, the V805 symbolizes the end of an era. It was the last V10 raced by one of Formula One's most iconic drivers and represents the culmination of the dominant Honda-McLaren partnership. Honda Racing Corporation launched its memorabilia business in 2025 with V805 as the inaugural item. It was auctioned by Bonhams during the Quail auction at Monterey Car Week on August 15, 2025, with an estimated value of around $100,000. The disassembly process begins with the engine head, followed by the strip-down work, then the crankshaft removal, and finally, the pistons. Engineers carefully document the position of every component, often taking photos or marking parts to ensure precise reassembly. Ancillary parts such as intake manifolds, exhaust headers, sensors, and wiring are removed first. Special care is taken with all components because Formula One tolerances are extremely tight. Cylinder head bolts are loosened in a specific sequence to prevent warping. The cylinder head is lifted off the engine block, revealing valves, camshafts, and combustion chambers. Camshafts, rocker arms, valve springs, and other components are removed individually. Each part is labeled and stored to track wear and for later analysis. Engineers measure wear and stress on every piece to learn how the engine performed in the race. Components are photographed, measured, and analyzed for fatigue or damage. Findings help improve future engine designs or adjust setups for performance and reliability. Unlike typical road car engines, a Formula One Honda V10 is disassembled with extreme precision. Every bolt, spring, and gasket is carefully cataloged. The V805 disassembly reportedly took 15 hours. These engines produced between 700 and 750 horsepower in 1990, which was highly competitive. They revved to 13,000 revolutions per minute, providing smooth and controllable power. Their compact and lightweight design allowed better balance and handling. Honda V10 engines were renowned for finishing races without failure. Honda's involvement in Formula One has evolved since the 1960s. In recent years, Honda re-entered the sport, focusing on hybrid power units that combine internal combustion engines with electric motors. As of 2025, Honda plans to supply engines to Aston Martin starting in the 2026 season, marking a shift from its long-standing partnership with Red Bull Racing. Honda's recent power units have contributed to multiple world championship titles. The Sakura facility remains central to Honda's innovation, working on everything from Formula One engines to solid-state batteries and advanced mobility technologies. The RA100E engine is a part of Formula One history. Very few Honda V10 engines from that era still exist in complete form. Formula One engines were often used for development and then scrapped, so surviving examples are extremely rare. Collectors purchase them for display, museums, or investment, and motorsport enthusiasts and engineers value them for their advanced technology. Owning a V10 allows people to study the craftsmanship of 1990s Formula One engineering. You can now see the disassembled gears and the engine's power transmission system. Honda's V10 engines underwent continuous development to enhance performance and reliability. In 1990, the new V10 engine was introduced with refined bore and stroke dimensions for improved efficiency and power. After Honda withdrew from Formula One at the end of 1992, it continued involvement through Mugen Motorsports, supplying V10 engines to various teams, achieving notable successes such as a victory at the 1996 Monaco Grand Prix. The disassembly at the Sakura factory was carried out by the original engineers who built the engine. Each component, including camshafts, pistons, connecting rods, and cam covers, was handled with extreme care. Formula One engines like this were crafted almost entirely by hand without robots. Pistons are forged from aluminum alloy, precisely machined and balanced to ensure smooth operation at high RPMs. Crankshafts convert piston motion into rotation, endure extreme stress, and are carefully inspected after every race. Finally, the engine was sold at Bonham's Quail Auction during Monterey Car Week on August 15, 2025, achieving a final price of $254,000, including all fees and commissions. This sale marked the first item in Honda Racing Corporation's memorabilia venture, giving fans a chance to own a piece of motorsport history. The engine parts are now cleaned, documented, and ready for reassembly, preserving a legendary piece of Formula One engineering. By placing this line at the Sakura site, Honda leverages its existing advanced R&D infrastructure, engineers, and proximity to Japan's mobility innovation ecosystem. The facility ties into Honda's broader goal. By 2040, all new vehicle sales globally to be battery electric or fuel cell electric. A Honda's restoration process isn't just about maintenance, it's also a way to learn and innovate. Each component is carefully photographed, measured for wear, and tagged before being stored for future study. The data gathered from this process helps Honda refine and improve the reliability and performance of its future engines. After disassembly, each cleaned part is either preserved in display cases for historical engines, such as Senna's V805, or reassembled to its original specifications for testing or exhibition. Every step is done entirely by hand. No robots are involved, using precision tools and the expertise of the same engineers who built these engines decades ago.